seems to be a common belief that anything less than a .44 Magnum will only make a bear angry and will not kill it. The truth is, bears can be killed with most handgun calibers with the right ammunition, and that bears are not any harder to kill than anything else that big. I'll be using cattle as a point of reference due to their similar size. Obviously there are differences in skull shape, but for the most part, this comparison is very relevant. For example, regular full metal jacket handgun bullets can both penetrate and break cow and bear bones. That being said, let's find out what bullets and calibers are most effective and why. We need a bullet that can penetrate straight through a lot of meat and bone. This requires a certain bullet shape, a round nose, flat point. Almost all dangerous game bullets are shaped like this for a reason. This is because the flat point design allows for straight penetration and more damage than a regular round nose bullet. Also, a bullet with a wide flat nose will penetrate less hard barriers than one with a smaller flat nose. We also want a bullet that doesn't deform at all. Solid copper or brass bullets, as well as hard cast lead, are all very good at doing this. Also, flat-nose full metal jackets can also be used if that's all you can get. Before we start comparing handgun calibers, I'd like to show you some real-world penetration results. These bullets were shot through the side of a dead cow and into some water jugs. It looks like a .31 caliber bullet doesn't need much energy to have almost the same penetration that a .45 caliber bullet does. This is the amount of penetration needed to reach the back of the vitals of a bear. If a bear is particularly fat, it may have multiple additional inches of fat that the bullet needs to go through as well. Keep in mind that the inches of penetration in a bear doesn't exactly match inches of ballistics gel, but it does give us an important frame of reference to make comparisons with. I would much rather have a bullet that penetrates entirely through the bear, not just the vitals. The reason for this is the fact that bears have thick fat and fur that can slow bleeding. If you only have an entrance wound the size of your bullet's diameter, that can be a problem. If you have both an entrance wound and an exit wound, that can give you a good advantage. Now let's compare the penetration of different bullets when shot through half-inch medium density fiberboard, thick carpet, and clear ballistics gel. My main conclusion when looking at this chart was that if you have a bullet that's roughly .35 caliber, like a 9mm, it's better to have at least 450 foot-pounds of energy. For a .44 Magnum, you want 900 plus foot-pounds of energy. And for 10mm, you want around 680 foot-pounds. I'd also like to mention that the 9mm load at the top of the chart was successfully used by an Alaskan guide, Phil Shoemaker, to stop a brown bear attack. It does have more power due to the longer barrel used in this test. Anything equal to or better than this load can be considered adequate for bear defense. Now, let's compare the penetration of different calibers in just ballistics gel. All of these bullets were extreme penetrators that were shot into clear ballistics gelatin. 9mm is out-penetrating both a .45-70 rifle and a .500 Smith & Wesson revolver. Again, we see that large diameter bullets require much more force to travel the same distance as a small diameter bullet. I'd also like to mention the fact that I'm comparing extreme penetrator rounds because they penetrate less than a regular round nose flat point bullet. This is happening because those penetrator rounds are using energy to make a wider wound instead of a very deep wound. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any .44 Magnum extreme penetrators that were shot into ballistics gel. But we do have some points of reference that we can use to guess the penetration would be about 28 inches. By the way, I'll post my video about the water jug to ballistics gel conversion around the same time I post this video. Now, let's look at some hard cast lead bullets and some round nose full metal jackets for comparison. When you have a good bullet shape and caliber, it'll go over 5 feet of gelatin, which is not bad considering grizzlies tend to be about 6 feet long. Grizzlies have thick bones compared to humans, which is why it's a good idea to make sure your bullet can penetrate through such bone and still hit the vitals. It appears that you may not need a lot of energy to penetrate through a bear's chest cavity. I have 2 cases of irresponsible people who shot and killed bears with a single .22 caliber bullet to the chest. This video demonstrates how you can shoot right through a very thick cow bone with a regular lead .22 bullet. He also used the .22 hollow point, which shattered the bone instead of just putting a hole in it. I'm not advocating that anyone rely on just a .22 for bear defense. I'm simply stating the fact that if .22s can go through thick bone, other calibers should have no problem. This is a whole lot of bullets that were shot into wood to see how well they penetrate. Obviously wood is not bone, but it can give us a good comparison for different calibers and bullets. When looking at the 500 Smith & Wesson bullets, it's surprising how much more penetration the 440 grain bullet got. This information is from an Alaskan who built a bear target that charges at him so he could test which weapons are best during a bear attack. During a bear attack, you have very little reaction time, and your life depends on your ability to shoot quickly and accurately. Moderately recoiling semi-auto handguns give you an advantage in the ability to shoot faster than high recoiling revolvers. In one of my previous videos, I explained why a .44 Magnum doesn't kill any faster than a less powerful 10mm does. For this reason, cartridges like 357 SIG that both penetrate well and are available in semi-auto handguns are good for bear defense. It's not uncommon for bears, or people for that matter, to take multiple rounds without stopping, which is why magazine capacity is also important. It's also not uncommon for bear attack survivors to miss a few times because of the high stress. I'd also like to mention that I don't think anyone should carry a single action only revolver for bear defense, considering how poorly it fared in this test. All of these handgun calibers are capable of stopping bear attacks. I wouldn't get too hung up on the caliber as long as you have the right bullet. A round-nosed, flat-point bullet made out of hard-cast lead.